They now make mini treadmills that you can put under your desk, or, bicycle pedals that you can put under your desk. Anything that's going to get you moving and get those joints moving, get the blood flowing, is going to help the body overall. It's not even just about the physical joints and that sort of thing, but that gets your heart rate up, it gets your blood flowing, it gets your endorphins up, so you're happy.
Thank you for stopping by Nurture Small Business Podcast. I am your host, Denise Cagan. If you're looking for stories that lift up women business owners, both in their personal and professional lives, you are at the right place. As always, if you like what you hear on today's podcast, please share it. You have my gratitude for doing so. So today I have a very special guest, someone that I've known for quite some time, and she's going to talk about women's health. Now, as a business owner and a virtual remote company, I sit a lot, and I bet there's a lot of our listeners out there. If you have that back pain, that stuff going on with your hips, I got to say this, every time I get a massage, I think it's the IT band that goes from the hip down towards the knee. It pains me immensely. Okay. And this lady, she is going to tell you all about that stuff and how we can care for ourselves better so that we don't feel like poop at the end of the day. Welcome to the show, Holly Beebe.
Hello.
So I understand, first of all, this is your first podcast, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, but you are no stranger to Zoom. We're recording on Zoom because you conduct training sessions on Zoom, correct?
I do, yes. Yep, 30 to 45-minute sessions. I've been doing that since COVID, so.
Okay. And when I moved away from Charlotte, I've taken advantage of that. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to work me out tomorrow and hurt me. Just kidding.
Yeah. I do. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. So, Holly, we hear about, PT trainers and how you can go and get your certificate online. Tell us about your credentials.
So for me, it is true that there's really no regulations for personal trainers. So a lot of your trainers out there just have, they went to 3-day trainings and took a test online, or maybe even took their training online and took a test online to become a trainer. For me, I've been doing massage therapy for 17 years, and I've been doing massage at the time for about 3 years, and realized I do all therapeutic massage. So I realized that I can massage things, tight things a lot, I massage it all the time and work it out. But if my clients weren't going and strengthening the things that they needed to strengthen, then, it's only a piece of the puzzle. I wanted the whole puzzle. So I went back to school for exercise science and finished out my bachelor's degree in that. It's been 11 years ago now. So I have been doing personal training with both massage therapy and personal training with my clients since then. I also really like to specialize more in corrective exercise. I specialize in general corrective exercise because I do work with an older population. Most of my clients are 50 plus, and honestly, most of them are 60 plus now. And I also am trying to get more into, because I just had a baby 2.5 years ago at the age of 42, and working more into pre and postnatal corrective exercise as well. So, which has also helped me because with, my older clients, we still have issues as we get older. If you're a woman and you've had a baby and you never had things properly trained, so it's going to affect you later. So
it's like a car getting a tune-up. We didn't get our tune-up.
Definitely. Well, you have to get tune-ups all the time. So
we didn't get our tune-ups. So when you say corrective exercise, give me some examples of some conditions that one might use a corrective exercise for.
So, for example, probably every client that I have has had some rotator cuff injury at some point in their life. That's a really big one. It's one of the biggest injuries in the body. So a corrective exercise specialist can help you come back from that surgery and help strengthen it. So basically, I take a lot of people coming from their physical therapy. When your physical therapy ends, they send you to a corrective exercise specialist because not only are we cheaper, but we spend longer with you. And that's what we do. You know, the PTs have other stuff that they do, but we take you through those exercises. And it's important, you know, I do rotator cuff. I've had a lot of knee replacement clients who come to me pre and post surgery. Trying to think what else. Pre and post pregnancy is also one that you can use because if you, a lot of women end up with diastasis recti. They
Okay,
end up with
pause.
pelvic floor
What
issues.
is that?
So
Something.
diastasis recti is where that like you have a separation of that linea alba in your abdominal region. And a lot of women do have that, you know, just from the pressure of the baby pushing out. So women who have that may or may not ever be able to get back the same abdominal strength that they had unless they correct that, which can also lead to a lot of back pain and such later on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've known people who've had cesarean sections, especially as an emergency one, and they're like, yeah, my insides are not in the same places. And so, and so they're having to do the same thing, you know, those exercises to strengthen the abdominals so that they literally don't have pain and that their digestion works properly.
Yeah. The whole pelvic floor. I mean, the pelvic floor is what supports all of your internal organs. Also, as we age, you know, that's what keeps you from peeing on yourself, you know?
Yeah, I've always heard don't jump on a trampoline after 40 because there might be some things you cannot control. Oh my goodness. That is so far off topic. Okay. So what other kinds of things like we want to talk also about sitting, which is pretty much an endemic. A lot of people sit a lot. I know I do. So what are some of the injuries and conditions that you're seeing there, and what are the corrective exercises?
So, as you said, a lot of people most of us sit at a desk all day. And a lot of people are working way longer than 8 hours these days. I have clients who work a 10-hour, 12-hour day repeatedly. And then you sit in a car going to work, and you sit in a car coming home from work, and then you sit in front of the TV to decompress. And then you get up the next morning and you do the same exact thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is when you're in that seated position, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know any single person on this planet, myself personally, that sits with a perfect posture.
No, as a matter of fact, when I sit, my feet are usually up and my feet wind up, my hip winds up hurting, left hip specifically.
Yeah. And most likely you're shifting to that left side. We all have a favorite side that we like to kind of dump into. Or, you know, if you have a favorite side of the couch and you're sitting there lounged up watching TV and you're dumped into that left side. But what happens is as you're sitting in your desk, especially if you're sitting in a car for very long periods of time, they're not designed to put you in an open position. You're in a closed position. Your torso is in a closed position. So what happens is those muscles, your abdominal muscles, your hip flexor, most people know about the psoas, it's your biggest hip flexor, but your quads are also hip flexors. But they end up, I don't want to say in a shortened position because muscles have attachments and they stay at those attachments, but they kind of stay in that contracted position because when you're seated, they're contracted. So you end up in that shortened position. You get up from your desk. You feel like you're standing up nice and tall, but your muscles are not. Your muscles are still in that contracted position, and they'll remain in that contracted position unless you purposely come back out of that. On the flip side of that, we're sitting on our butts all day. So, well, you guys are. I don't. I stand all day, but sitting on the glutes, there is an actual I want to say medical term. I don't know if it's an actual medical term, but there is a name for it. It's called gluteal amnesia. And that is where you sit on your glute max so long that the fascia actually adheres to the glute max and the glute med and glute min underneath. And a lot of the fluids get kind of pushed out like a sponge, and they just adhere to one another. So when the fascia and the muscle adhere to one another, they don't work the same.
They don't move correctly.
No, they're supposed to glide. There's supposed to be a nice gliding motion there with, some good fluid and gliding. And when they're mashed together like that, they can't move. So you're sitting there, your glutes are getting weaker, the front of you is getting tighter. So what we do on a corrective exercise standpoint, when you start getting, typically that leads to that hip pain, tight hips. It leads to back pain. Most of the time, the back pain is because of the psoas on the front of the body. Everybody wants me to work the back of the body because that's where it hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually because of that tight psoas on the front and the tight abdominals, because the abdominals do attach on the pelvis on that lower end. So everything's pulling on that pelvis. Everything, is making those hips tight. And then your glutes aren't working properly. So when you get up and walk, your gait is off. So that's the bottom half of you. But the other part of that is the top half of you. Me doing massage, I do get this because all of us work with our hands in front of us all day. We drive with our hands in front of us. We cook with our hands in front of us. We are on a computer all day with our hands in front of us. So that leads to your pectoralis muscles in the chest kind of curving in and shortening in that direction, which gives you that stress and pain in the upper back, usually between the shoulder blades and up through the neck. And then you get, there's a term for that too, called tech neck. But basically it's just forward head posture, meaning that your head, your ear, if you were to look at yourself in a profile position, your ear and your chin are way forward over your shoulders. And the further forward that head is, the human head weighs on average 7 to 14 pounds. That's a lot for these tiny little muscles up here in the neck to take on. And then you've got gravity pushing down on that. So you get a lot of pain in the neck and shoulders. So in that respect, like I said, from a corrective exercise point, what we try to do is come in and stretch the front of the body. We do help to strengthen the core because those abdominal muscles are what's going to help you sit upright. And the core is not just, most people think the core is just the abdominals. It is not just the abdominals. There are 4 abdominals. That's a very small piece of the pie. We have that pelvic floor that we talked about earlier. We have the back muscles, the erector spinae, and all those that go along the spine and all your stabilizers there. You have a lot of hip stabilizers and the glutes. Those all comprise your core. So we come in and we strengthen those, and we strengthen what's called the posterior chain, which is the back side of the body. That's all the way up: calves, hamstrings, glutes, erector spinae on the back, all your stabilizers back there, just to help keep you upright. So when you do stand up out of that chair, you're actually upright. Your muscles hold you upright. And you know what you can do once you get out of that chair at night when you're trying to relax or whatever. There are stretches that you can do. I mean, there's stretches you can do just sitting in front of the TV to help open up those hips and help open up the front side of the body.
Yeah, I one of the exercises for opening the front side of the body, and I don't know where I saw this one in particular, was literally just putting one shoulder up against the door frame and then stretching it, to keep it stationary. It's a slow stretch. It's not like trying to rip the shoulder off or anything, but that was one of the things. You can use the door frame for, a couple of those. What other ones can people easily do, like at your desk? You just referenced your desk.
Yep. So a really big one I give people for the upper body at their desk, if you have a chair that has a back to it, is to reach around the back of that chair, placing the backs of your hands against the chair, and then you just push into that chair. Yeah. So if you push your hands in, it opens up your shoulders, right?
Yep, sure does.
So the other thing with that, though, is that you do have to be mindful of pulling your chin back so you're not getting that forward head posture.
Yeah,
that's And that's another easy one that I give to people. I do it personally sitting at red lights. So is to tuck the chin and push your head back into your headrest. So while you're sitting at that red light, I mean, your neighbor might think you're a little weird, but who cares? Tuck your chin in, push your head against it, because that's going to help to strengthen the back of the neck, those neck muscles back there. As far as the lower body and the hips, a really easy one to do in the chair is the figure 4 stretch, which most people know. That's where you put your foot across the opposite knee. The thing with that, though, because most people will put their foot across the knee and then they just lean forward, and guess what you're doing right there?
You're contracting again.
Yeah, you're just going into that fold. So what I have people do is put that across, but then actively use the back side of that leg, that thigh, those glutes, to pull the knee that's crossed, the one that's bent. You're pulling that knee down actively. And then you can lean forward slightly. If you contract, you won't need to lean forward very far to get that stretch. I also tell people to make sure that they're leading from the center of their chest. If you do any yoga, you'll know it as the heart center. Lead with your heart center, lead with your sternum, and it'll keep your back straight. So you're not going into that folded over position.
That makes a lot of sense.
Another good one to do is a twist. If you can twist, some people who have disc issues don't need to do this one, but if you have, especially if you have a chair that has arms on it, you can take one arm across the body and just pull yourself around. You can take, that back arm, like if you take your right arm to the left handle of your chair, twist around, take your left arm up above your chair, or wrap it around, and it's going to open up the whole torso.
Okay. Now, for those of you listening, we're going to actually do some exercise demonstrations, but we're going to do them after the audio podcast and record the video. The video will be on YouTube so that you can see it and see the stretches that Holly is talking about. Okay. I just want everybody to know that. So what are long-term conditions of, like sitting and just things that women don't take care of in general?
I would say probably the biggest thing, and there's been some studies done recently of how so much sitting is actually decreasing our lifespan, because there's just inactivity in general. You actually burn 8 more calories per hour by standing rather than sitting, which doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of a whole day, that's your glass of wine at night. If if you partake in that, or but it's a lot. You're also using muscles standing that you aren't using sitting. But I would say in general, a lot of disc issues in the back are caused by too much sitting, and specifically with that kind of dumped in posture, where the low back is rounded. That causes a lot of shearing effect on those low back on the discs. I've also seen a lot of tightness in the hips and the knees, as far as like people who are very sedentary, who do all that sitting and then never, come home and do anything, end up just with all of that stuff locking down. So, use it or lose it. As we age, so the ball and socket joints of the hip and the shoulder, and you have other, but there are synovial joints. So that synovial fluid comes into the joint as the joint moves. And that's true for every joint in our body. So if you don't move it, you're not getting that fluid in there. You're not, you're getting a lot more friction in that joint, which can lead to arthritis. It leads to all the itises, arthritis, bursitis, all the itises. Itis is just an inflammation of something.
The bursa sac, yeah.
The bursa, yeah, the joint itself, the cartilage in the joint wearing down. So
random here, but I actually got bursitis because I had a seat that was too small. So I was sitting with with it kind of hitting my hip joints, and it was like all of a sudden I'm in this incredible pain, and it wound up being bursitis.
Oh yeah. And it doesn't take much to make that bursa angry, especially in the hip. Any kind of rubbing like that will make it angry, and it is really, really difficult to get rid of, which I'm sure you found.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first thing was getting rid of the seat. That was the first thing.
So yeah, that, that's the biggest things. Of course, especially for women, all women know about the old lady hump, the dowagger's hump. That's a postural issue. That is because when we hump,
the one at the back of the neck?
Yeah, like
okay.
camel hump at the top of the neck. That's all because of posture and not being strong enough in the core.
Okay. So as we age, we carry this bowling ball around on our head. Butts get amnesia. And what was the other thing you said? All of our front muscles tighten up. So in order to counteract all of this, we need to move, essentially. Even stretch.
And even, you can do the stretches while you're seated, but honestly, the best thing is just to get up and walk. The general recommendation is to get up and walk around every 30 minutes. I know for a lot of people that's not reasonable. But I do, get creative with it. You can do meetings. I work with a lot of bankers who are on meetings all the time, and they walk for their meetings. They now make mini treadmills that you can put under your desk, or, bicycle pedals that you can put under your desk. Anything that's going to get you moving and get those joints moving, get the blood flowing, is going to help the body overall. It's not even just about the physical joints and that sort of thing, but that gets your heart rate up, it gets your blood flowing, it gets your endorphins up, so you're happy.
I love it. So I understand that you have an offer for our listeners.
Yes. So I do offer, I have an intro to training package because, and I just developed this not long ago because I realized that, training it's not cheap. And sometimes it could be intimidating to buy into a $500 or $600 package. So I offer an intro to training package, which is a free discovery call. We can call or we can Zoom to talk about health issues, your goals, what's going on with your body, whether I can help you, what you're looking for, that sort of thing. And then 3 30-minute sessions, which can be done virtually, or we can do it in person if you're in the Charlotte area. So normally that package would be $135, and I'll be offering it for $99 for anybody listening.
Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that the link to that is in the show notes. So please make sure you check the show notes. And if you can't see them on whatever app you're listening on, go to our website, dcavirtual.com/podcast and find the podcast, and it's in the main menu. So go there and find it. It'll be in the show notes for Holly's podcast. Also, how can people find you directly?
So I have a website on Massage Book. It's just massagebook.com/EscalateWellCLT. And then I'm also on Instagram at EscalateWellCLT. So either of those places, I'm sure you'll give my information. A text or a call works as well. So
perfect. And we'll make sure those are in the show notes also. Is there something that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't think so. I think you did very well.
Thank you. And I think you did too for your first podcast. You tapped into that knowledge source and you didn't really need any prompting. So, Holly, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining me for today's podcast, where I focus on women in business and how we can be allies to one another. Please rate us on the podcast app that you listen to the most, and send me any ideas you have for podcast topics or any other feedback. I love to hear from my listeners. You can reach me at Denise@dcavirtual.com.